And we're live.
Good afternoon.
Episode 10, Talk of All Trades. We are doing this one via Zoom. So I'd like to introduce my old professor. I won't say old, but he is my former professor, Dale Rude. He is my, or was my behavioral finance professor. Greetings, Dale.
Thanks. Great to see you, Cody and Thomas. Thanks for inviting me to join you today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
So I believe, Dale, didn't you have a birthday recently?
I did. I turned 70 on June 28th.
Happy belated birthday. Thank
you. So I'm the old professor in addition to being the old professor. So
technically, but I mean, you're only as young as you feel.
Or
yeah.
Old and young as you feel,
old,
right? Yeah, right on.
Yeah. So very cool. All right, so just a quick background. Dr. Dale graduated from Iowa State with his bachelor's in engineering, master's in psychology, and graduated from the University of Iowa with his PhD in business and management. He teaches several classes at the University of Houston, one of which was behavioral finance, which was one of my, if not my favorite class in my entire time at U of H. It was beyond interesting. It was so cool, and I think a lot of students that went there and took that class would agree. Yeah. So I want to have Dr. Dale on. Dr. Rude, you want me to call you Dale?
Dale, yes.
Dale, yeah. So I want to have Dale on just to kind of give us an overview of the class, maybe just to kind of talk about different aspects of behavioral finance. Okay. And just give some insight, because I mean it's a interesting topic, at least to me. So
right.
Dale, would you mind giving us a little bit of background on just your, I guess, overall life and everything that kind of led you to where you are today?
Okay. I grew up in western Iowa on a small farm. It was very rural. Nearest town was 2.5 miles away with 40 people. I grew up in a low-income family. The most money my parents ever made was $10,000 a year, and in today's dollars, that's about $30,000. There were 5 of us, so I always had a roof over my head, food to eat, but money was always tight. So that's helped me become interested in money. I had 5 college majors. I was a sailboat. I started out in physics, then one kind of engineering, another kind of engineering, and a bachelor's degree, then a master's in psychology, in counseling and psychometrics, and a PhD in business and organizational behavior. Behavioral finance didn't exist when I was a student. It came into being, more or less in the 90s. There were just the very start of it back in the 80s. So it's something that I learned about going to meetings and knowing about psychology and business. The merger of those two seemed really interesting. I was interested in decision making.
Yeah.
So I've been at U of H for 34 years. I teach organizational behavior, which I like to say is learning how to better manipulate people to make money. And when I say manipulate, if you pay me well, give me an interesting job, support me, and promote me when I'm ready, that's right. Manipulation. I'll take that any day.
Sure, yeah.
And the second class is behavioral finance, the psychology of money. I'll throw in a plug. About 2 years ago, I became aware that some of my former students were becoming millionaires. So I asked around, and I'm up to 25 who are millionaires. I call it the Millionaires Club.
Yeah.
So I started teaching behavioral finance in summer of 2000, and the group of 25, most of them took the class between 2006 and 2011, and all were millionaires by age 40. So that's pretty cool. As the instructor, I don't take credit for what they did. They did all the work. I take great satisfaction. I think the principles are really useful and important. And my favorite story, one of the students is Boo. Boo came to the U.S. at age 8 as a refugee from Vietnam, and his family didn't have any money, didn't know the language, didn't know the culture. And 30 years later, he's a millionaire twice over. He and his wife, Vicky, both took my class. Yeah, I think they graduated in 06, and they've both done really well. I live in the city of Bel Air in Houston, which is a pretty nice area.
Right.
They live a mile from me, and their house is worth $100,000 more than my house. They also have a rental property. So I'm super proud of everybody, including Cody. But the millionaire, especially Vu, hold a special place in my heart for me, I guess I'd say.
Well, hopefully,
So
I
what
can
they
join that club
yeah.
one day.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, I read a few books, that you recommended. One of which was, I think, "The Millionaire Next Door," which was a good one.
Oh, okay.
And that kind of taught you the principles, I think, of becoming a millionaire, right?
Yeah. That's a great point. The book was published in 96. I read it spring break 1997, and it changed my life. Up to that point, we'd been making good money, but we hadn't accumulated much net worth. We're at I think, about 300,000. And I read the book, I realized it's that we weren't managing our money well. So I took over money management for my wife, Mary, and we've done better since then. So,
And some of those money management techniques you were able to derive from this book, The Millionaire Next Door.
yes, yeah.
What was one I guess prevalent technique that stood out to you from that? I'm sure there's several that they talked about in the book, but was there one
There are
that
there are seven main points. They interviewed about 200 people, I think it was,
Okay.
and they are surveyed a large number of people, and seven things came out. One of those was to live below your means,
Oh, yes.
which is it's common knowledge, but it's not sort of commonly practiced. All this stuff.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
second one, so I've got the book right here. This is the book, The Millionaire Next Door, book by Stanley and Danko. It's kind of flashing in and out here. And the second one was to think about money, to actually plan with money. So I think implied in it was to track your money. So I check our bank account every day. I look at the retirement account at the end of every month. I compute net worth once a year. So you keep track and think about money. And something you talked about before we started, Thomas, was identifying mentors and people that are good with money and just talking to them about what they do. I think that's really important.
Right.
That there's a lot of knowledge. If you're learning on your own, especially when you're starting out, growing up a low income family, my family didn't have money to invest. They were talking about stocks. At the time, very few people in the neighborhood had college educations, much less invested. I mean, basically, those teachers and preachers were the only ones with college degrees in the area I grew up in at the time. So when you're self-taught, it takes a long time. You make a lot more mistakes.
Sure.
Another part of the book says that looks are deceiving, that people who you would think are millionaires often aren't. People that have the flashy car, the big house, the jewelry, and so forth
Right.
are often paycheck to paycheck. And the millionaire next door is somebody who is unassuming and you wouldn't guess would be a millionaire.
Right. And that's probably because they're taking one of that principles there, live below your means.
Yeah.
And you recognize that. And, that's funny because, again, something we talked about before we started the podcast, I mentioned that I didn't really know about behavioral finance. I actually hadn't even heard the term until Cody had mentioned that we were going to be speaking with you. And so I kind of did a little background on it and kind of noticed, and what I said to you before, the way I summed it up was behavioral finance is kind of like the cheat code to managing your finances. Because in a sense, and then you had backed that up by basically saying, well, because you're going to be managing yourself. And that's one of the most difficult aspects of financial behaviors or financial decision making is being able to manage yourself. And I, kind of, confessed candidly that I have the tendency to be an impulse buyer, and I recognize that about myself. And there's times where I feel like I need to get a grasp on it, try to get a handle on it. But that makes sense that the millionaire next door would be unassuming, especially if they're following one of those principles, living below your means,
Yeah. I think we're wired to make mistakes. Like we're wired, if 3 data points line up in a row, that's a trend, and we're going to follow that.
Right.
So if a stock goes up, I don't know, 3 months, 3 days, 3 years, it's going to keep going up. And we'll invest in it.
Sure. Yeah, an individual stock like that. And I think that was another, I'm glad you mentioned that because part of my little just down and dirty Google researching did mention that we'll take random acts or random outcomes that we perceive as a trend, like you mentioned, or a pattern, and we're gonna follow that full steam ahead.
Yeah.
You know,
Even though they might not keep going that direction.
no, absolutely not. You know, and then I think, especially if you start to take a dive, let's say in a stock, then I think there's a whole nother wave of emotions and psychology that gets brought in. You know, you might even have like a gambler's type of deal to it. You know,
Yeah, I think I remember learning in your class something about losses hurt worse than gains.
Yeah. Losses hurt about 2.5 times as much as gains. So it makes us loss averse. So we're less likely to invest in the stock market. We're more likely to become scared and pull our money out of the market, even though it's going to come back up.
right. And I guess provided you're invested in the right things. So one of the things that, you know, talking to the older mentors that I had, you know, mentioned before, guys that I worked with that are, you know, nearing retirement age, they said just pick an index fund, you know, and then that seems to be fairly common knowledge, at least amongst the people that I speak with.
Right.
Some people are like, oh yeah, that's ABCs of investing. You know, invest in the S&P 500. Pick an index fund and just leave it in there.
Just follow the market.
And don't check it. Maybe like what Dale said, maybe check it once a month or so. Keep contributing to it, and you should be fine. But I guess maybe it's not that prevalent. Maybe it's not that common of knowledge. I'm not sure, because it seems like the recipe for success is just as simple as that.
You'd think so. I mean, I feel like for those who don't care or don't care to invest, it's not common knowledge.
Okay.
You know? But I guess once you start investing, then you start researching, and hopefully you discover or are told, you know, that, hey, pretty much that's the smartest move,
Right.
or at least the safest move.
Right.
Yeah, I think we're wired to think we can predict things. And the stock market's really hard to predict. I think it's beyond the grasp of you and I.
Right.
What we read in the newspaper is already in the stock price. That there are, I don't know, tens of thousands of people with hundreds of millions or billions of dollars backing them with the same information or much more knowledgeable. So as soon as something new becomes available, it's reflected in the price. So in essence, there are no bargains.
Right.
But that's like saying, so that's basically saying that even the most knowledgeable people can't predict very well. That's like saying I go to my mechanic and he randomly picks whatever the problem is. If I have a noise coming from the engine, he'll say replace the tires or something, kind of randomly matching solution with problem. So the world we live in, there are experts and they can do better than you and me, and they can figure things out. But the stock market's different because so many people are involved and all the information is public. The price moves.
Yeah. Yeah.
One example I use in class, I have a old volume E of the World Book from 1962, and I go to class, I say, there are tens of thousands of these in basements. If I auction this off, how much can I get from it? And somebody will say something like 50 cents. I open it up and I show that there's a $100 bill inside. And I say, if only one person knows this, what will it sell for if I sell it to the class? And I'll sell it for 50 cents because that person isn't going to bid any more than they have to. But what if two people know and they don't know that one another know? They're going to bid it up until it's $100.50.
Right.
So if other people know what you know, the price is going to adjust to reflect that knowledge. It's a basic idea. I think that's a pretty simple but pretty powerful explanation. So if you just give up, and as you said, Thomas, talking to your colleagues, you invest in index funds, which basically matches the market.
Right.
The market goes up and down. Your portfolio will match that, but you don't have the flux. It's much more stable. The fluctuations are much less than if you invest in individual stocks.
Right.
And there are target date funds that'll include bonds, that'll include international bonds and stocks, which also balance out your portfolio. And the target date funds, as you get older, they become more conservative. They move more toward bonds, and there's some cash in it as well. So the mutual fund company takes care of that for you.
Right.
So it's incredibly easy. And the price, I invest with Vanguard and index funds. It's like 0.1%. And I'm literally invested in thousands of companies around the world because my money's pooled with other people. If I was to take 100,000, I could invest in, I don't know, maybe, 50 stocks. I don't know how much. And there'd be transaction fees. I have to do it all. I just dump the money in and they take care of it.
Right.
It's just such a great deal.
Yeah, it makes sense. And if you have the extra income, and you mentioned the way you grew up. I mean, your family couldn't afford to do that.
No.
And a lot of our families, the way where we grew up, working class neighborhood like Sagemont.
Yeah.
A lot of our families were the same. Although I will say, in my family, we're kind of a little bit more, I guess, established now. We do understand these principles, and they've been passed down.
Right.
So on top of learning from my older colleagues, my grandparents were also early investors and explained the benefit to me. And so, again, unlocking the cheat code to finances.
Right.
We're doing it the hard. At least I can speak for myself. I'm doing it the hard way. I've made tons of mistakes.
Oh, yeah. And I started way too late, and I'm not going to let my children make that same mistake.
Right.
So then I'm going to start, an account for them, in their infancy, when they're, children, and watch that grow, and then hopefully they'll be able to, pass that on to their children, and create.
Yeah.
I guess generational wealth.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Maybe we won't be the millionaires, but maybe one of our kids or their kids will be
millionaires by proxy. They'll take care of us whenever we're
there. We go.
older.
I think both of you will make it. One of the fascinating things about money is the curve at which it accumulates.
Yeah.
It's an exponential curve. So it stays very flat, and then it starts to get steeper and steeper. So one of my friends who teaches in a personal finance program says once you have 500 or 1,000 or a million, that's when it gets to be fun.
Yeah, I bet. Yep.
Because if you make 10%, 500,000, that's 50,000 you made. A million, that's 100,000. If you have a million, it's 100,000 and 200,000. But when you're on the flat part, it just takes forever. It's just excruciatingly slow. And all your friends are buying new cars, or going on vacation.
Sure.
They make fun of you for being careful with your money. But once you hit the steeper part, then it's fun. They're looking at you and asking, what do you do? How can I do that?
Right. And you managed it. That's what you did is you found a way to not worry about your friends and what's that, keeping up with the Joneses, right? We can't be concerned with that.
Yeah, and then you pass them up, and they're like, "Whoa, what happened?"
And that's kind of what he was mentioning before. It's easier said than done, though. I will say it can be a little difficult to do that. Especially if you see somebody your peers, right? Somebody your own age. Mm-hmm. Just I don't know, just whatever.
Going.
You got living their best life.
Yeah, you just got to say, hey, that's good for them. Of course, you don't want to be jealous or have any sort of those negative emotions, you know what I mean? But definitely don't let that leach onto you and whatever you've got going on, whatever your plan of direction is.
Yeah, don't let it tempt you.
Yeah, because I don't think it's worth trying to keep up with the keeping up appearances, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does that get you? You know what I mean? I think it's okay to live below your means while you have something else working on in the background.
So I was reading a book. I believe this was The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. It just mentioned about the keeping up with the Joneses type of living, and what you're doing is the nice car that you buy. You want people to admire you for it, I guess.
Okay.
But I mean, have you ever looked at somebody and said, "Oh man," like someone driving a nice car, and you're like, "Man, that guy must be cool," or were you thinking, "Man, that car is really cool. The car is the thing that you're appreciating, not the guy."
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so what you want is for people to admire you and respect you. That's what you're wanting to do when you buy the nice car.
I see.
You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily the thing. I guess it's the respect it commands, but it doesn't. It doesn't command the respect. It just commands people coveting the thing that you have.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really reflect on you. It reflects more on the thing.
Right.
They want the thing. But yeah, it's just a nice philosophy. So don't worry about it.
If you can learn to say your best friend or sibling gets the latest iPhone, you just look at it and say, "Wow, that's really nice. You're going to enjoy it." But I don't have to buy it myself. I can reinforce them. I can appreciate it, but I don't have to compete with them.
Right. There's no need to compete. Although, I don't know. he just mentioned buying the latest and greatest iPhone. It kind of got me thinking. I'm on that plan where you're going to perpetually pay for a phone
forever.
Yeah, and I mean, if you do the math and you say, okay, well, it's $58 a month times 12 months. It's like a little over $700 a year, which is considerably cheaper than buying the phone outright. But you're consistently paying
every year. Yeah,
every year.
What's the lifetime cost of doing that?
I don't know. I mean, like
you're gonna live another 35 plus years.
Yeah, I can multiply it, I guess. So
it's an expensive phone.
It's a very expensive phone, and and I guess if you can just take care of your phones, you should be able to get 5 years out of these. I mean, there is such a thing as, what do they call that? Planned failure. Like these things are going to
when they update it to a certain degree, they stop supporting older
hardware
models. Yeah.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah, after a certain amount of time, you have to upgrade.
You have to. Right.
Yeah. I think I went 6.5 years maybe.
Okay.
One time was my longest.
Well, and honestly, at $700 a year, 6 years, you just save that, no doubt, you know. So I'm probably going to cancel that plan soon.
After this podcast, give them a call.
Yeah. Just call AT&T, let them know the bad news. But I mean, that's just it though. These businesses are organized in such a way, they try to incentivize you in such a way to make these kind of purchases, and you rationalize it like I just said. Oh well, it's $700 a year, and that's a lot cheaper than a $1,500 phone, and it's the latest and greatest, and this, that, and the other.
Yeah. So it's that phrase, the latest and greatest. You always have the latest and greatest.
Right. You always have the latest and greatest, but you're going to be perpetually paying. But Dale, isn't that part of what these organizations would want you to do to begin with?
Yeah. And the same, like when you sign up for subscriptions,
right,
to various services, Netflix or what have you, we tend to keep them whether we use them or not.
Right.
I'm still on cable, and it's interesting. The cable bill keeps going up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The same with my insurance provider. My insurance seems to keep going up.
Yeah.
I've been with them for 47 years, and they've been good to me whenever I've had a claim. So I hesitate to change, but they're out to make money.
Yeah.
So you have to look out for yourself. They're not going to do it for you.
No, they're not. You're absolutely right. And I guess with having a PhD in business organizations and management, you had mentioned earlier that it's basically the way of these organizations learning how to, I guess, manipulate their customers. Is it or?
Yeah. I think they're very adept at it. I think the marketers are tremendous at it.
Yeah. And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, one of the tricks is if you don't keep up with the Joneses, that's really helpful.
That's huge.
If you want to just say, congratulations, that's really nice, I'm glad you got that. And the other thing is to try to minimize exposure to advertising. Mm-hmm. I grew up, we were TV kids, watched TV all the time. I can tell you, you tell me a product or tell me a jingle from the 60s, I can tell you what the product is and fill out the jingle for you.
Right.
So I'm putty in their hands. So if I just avoid that, if I'm watching a basketball game, commercial comes on, I'll just change channels.
Sure.
And I've done it enough. I know about how long, when to tune back. So if you just minimize exposure, because they're trying to push buttons as many ways as they can.
Yeah.
And they're in it for their good, much more so than your good. So you got to look out for yourself.
Yeah, no doubt. And it does seem a little. It's kind of hard not to get very conspiracy theory with it all. You know what I mean? It's like the cards are so stacked against you, and they want to keep you down in this little section of society and consume, and what have you. And
they just want your money.
But yeah, I guess that's what it really all boils down to. But it's hard not to. I guess it's hard for that to not build contempt within you. I know with me sometimes I'm kind of like. Like you mentioned, insurance providers, insurance is just one of those necessary evils, and they keep going up, and they can give you 1,000,001 reasons why, especially with the, rate of natural disasters and things of that nature that are taking place more frequently. We can get into a climate change talk if you'd like. But anyways, the point is, they can give you 1,000,001 reasons why, but something like an insurance provider that provides a service. But I mean, what's to say about what I mentioned earlier too, like the planned failures? Like why can't I buy a Samsung washer and dryer and expect it to last 20 something years? You know,
because they don't make them like they used to. That saying is real.
Well, and they don't for a reason is what I'm trying to get at. Right.
Yeah, because they realize that, hey, these things aren't breaking. You know, it's like we need people to buy new ones. No one's buying any new ones, you know, so.
Or at least support a maintenance part of the business, you know, part of the industry.
Yeah.
I think one exception is cars. Cars are much more reliable than they used to be. When we bought our first cars in the 70s, the expected life was about 100,000 miles.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And now you can easily drive a car 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. You take care of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Depending on the brand.
But,
oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right. You're a Nissan car salesman. I forgot. Go Nissan, right?
Yeah, go Nissan.
I mean, you know, another way to think about it too, just to kind of mention about cars, you know, when I finally paid off my truck in 2020.
Cool. Congratulations.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah. So 3 years, no car payments. And honestly, when that happened, I was like, wow, you know, I've consistently been having a car payment for, I don't know, 13 years, it seemed like. I don't know how long it was, you know, at the time. But anyhow, I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep this truck. And whatever happens to it, even if I have to replace the transmission, you know, that's still going to be a heck of a lot cheaper than going back out and buying another $70,000, $80,000 truck or something. You know what I mean? That's a $7,000 repair bill, or, you know, for the transmission versus the $70,000, you know, brand new sticker price on a brand new truck. Right. You know, and again, the numbers still make sense to me.
Yeah.
You know, to do it that way at least. And keep driving the old truck.
Yeah, I did the opposite. I paid off my truck in 2020 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I decided, you know, after a year or two, I was like, you know, let's go ahead and get a new truck.
Right.
And I will say that I do wish I would have kept my old truck. Yeah. Because.
And this is coming from a car salesman.
Coming from a car salesman.
Yeah. He's in the business.
Yeah.
But the temptation is real.
One thing we might talk about is what if you're married or in a situation where you have a partner, how money works.
Right.
I think it's best if everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, it gets a little more complicated. My wife is more of a spender than I am.
Yeah.
So our cars work on a hand-me-down system. We get a new car every 5 years. She drives it. I get the hand-me-down. Yeah. So the car, I give up a car. It's 10 years old.
Right.
And I get one that's 5 years old. And that's worked for us for a long time.
Yeah.
But she, you know, it's important to her to have a new car. She likes new things, nice things. She's a great wife. I'm delighted to be married to her. So you do what you have to do.
You make concessions. And I think, you know, and I say concessions, but, you know, I feel that. I understand that, especially with my wife. You know, she does a lot for the family. You know, she's a stay-at-home mom, wife. And at one point in time, if I'm being honest, and I feel bad, I was a little indignant to it. I was, you know, but I was young. I was in my early 20s. I didn't quite understand it. Then somebody kind of hit me with it, like, hey, man, if you were to put a money value to this, she's actually making a lot more money than you would, you know what I mean? Right. And I got to thinking about it, and I was like, you're absolutely right. And then, of course, beyond just the money thing, you know, you just had to take a step back and just look at it as a whole. You know, there's a lot more things that we need than money to survive and to live a very happy life, you know, and a good woman can provide that for me. And you're more than willing to want to, you know, I won't say reward it, but, you know, just show some sort of an appreciation of it. And if they're into the finer things and nicer things, then so be it, you know. And I'm a little less maintenance,
yeah.
So, you know, a little bit lower maintenance, and you know, a hand-me-down would be just fine. Yeah, for me.
Maybe that's in our nature. Maybe that's part of our behavioral finance. You know, our psychological. You know.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that. Is there some sort of trend in genders as far as, you know, that men typically trend this way behaviorally when it comes to finances versus women? I mean, they're.
The only thing I know about is investing. Women tend to do better than men.
Wow.
And it's due to trading. There's a study done by Terry O'Dean and Brad Barber in the late 90s. And they had, I think it was 10,000 discount brokerage, like access to 10,000 discount brokerage accounts from a firm at the time. And they compared men and women, and the women earned higher returns, and basically they weren't trading as much. It was all transaction costs. The men were trying to beat the market, and and they couldn't. So whatever they spent to make trades came out of their return and lowered their return. So it's attributed to men being more overconfident than women when it comes to money. Is what they attributed it to. I think building on what you said earlier, Thomas, the old saying, happy wife, happy life, is holds a lot of truth. I think you can stretch things out. In the old days, we bought a new car every 4 years. So we'd pay car payment for 3 years, save up for a down payment in the fourth year, then we buy a new car. You can stretch it out. So we stretched out for 5 years.
Right.
So basically, say you get a new car, but you can't do it as often.
Gotcha.
We paid our house off in 2007, and Mary came back from a walk, and she said, "I found and our house was worth about $400,000 at the time. So I found a house I like that would be $700,000." And this is just after we paid off our house.
Yes.
So I didn't say anything. I just looked at her, and thankfully she didn't bring it up again. But that mindset of when you pay something off, you move up.
Yeah.
Is pretty deadly.
Sure.
I did some calculations. I estimated the cost over the next 15 years for the additional 300,000 would have been about 45,000 a year. So that's spending money that would have gone into the more expensive house.
Right. Well, and then and so then we had talked about this too. This might have been before the podcast. What do you want to spend your money on? You said there was the thing that we could choose: experiences or I guess material things. And there was I guess I don't know if it was overwhelming or not, but there seemed to be more of a preference towards experiences.
Yeah, me and Thomas always joke about going and doing cool things, and we're always joking. All right, how much is this experience going to cost us?
Right.
There's always a cost to these experiences, right?
You can find cheap ones. The class exercise I do, and Cody may remember this, is ask people to think about the 5 times they were happiest in the last 5 years, and then to classify those as thing, experience, or achievement. Then I survey the class and ask each person how many things, how many experiences, and how many achievements they had. I do a quick tally on the board. And typically, experiences are about 80%, and things are 10%, and achievements are 10%. So the experiences win out. And as we talked earlier, things depreciate pretty fast. If you get a new car, in 6 months, it's going to be your old car.
Right.
New house, 6 months, it's just my house. But experiences build over time. You think about them, you look at the pictures, you talk about it. So experiences are a better investment, and most of the time they're cheaper. So.
And that's interesting. It's funny because when I think of experiences, and I guess you're absolutely right about that, because I have two young children, and one of the things that I do with them is one of the things that I remember growing up as a child, which was go to the beach. We'd go to Galveston. That seems to be a pretty regular family excursion for us, and of course,
it's pretty cheap.
It's fairly inexpensive. We usually have to buy some supplies at the grocery store, and then the gas to get there. It's about $150 or so nowadays to go to the beach. But it's one of those things that, again, I remember as a kid and remember fondly and vividly, and now we're doing that same for our children. And I'm pretty sure they're going to have the same memories as well. Yeah. So I guess it does make sense to put your money towards the experiences. Although, kind of like what Cody was saying earlier too, I guess it's just the male in us, or maybe it's just the fact that we have to manage the money. Sometimes it's hard for me to enjoy vacation because I'm just going cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. I'm seeing, how much money's being spent, and maybe because I'm not budgeting for it right. Perhaps there needs to be a vacation fund, so to speak, an experience fund that money is allocated for. Yeah. So that way you could spend it guilt-free, carefree, guilt-free, or whatever the case may be.
And work to stay within that. Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And like I said, just kind of me myself, just kind of learning this along the way, and making making mistakes or learning things as as
Yeah, we
what I
all
keep
make
calling
mistakes. I think that's just
cheat
part of the
codes.
game.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
I what we try to do in the behavioral finance class is to reduce the number of mistakes and maybe the severity.
Yeah. Well, obviously, the 25 former students were able to not just reduce the mistakes, but then, found a way to a path or a road to becoming millionaires.
Right. So, Dale, what was your own path to your financial success and your journey and everything? How did you obtain financial independence and
Yeah, it's a good question, Cody. So in '97, when I read The Millionaire Next Door, we were 33 years old. We 34 years ago today, we arrived in Houston. We moved here. Our net worth was 75,000, and 35,000 was in retirement. We were 36 years old, so we were way behind.
Yeah.
In '97, I read The Millionaire Next Door. We had a net worth of about 300,000. I saw that we weren't playing the game very well, so we started investing better. Eventually, we got into index funds and just put more money away.
Okay.
So I tried to. One of the tricks is when you get a raise, is to put a percent away into retirement. So your company puts in X percent, let's say, I don't know, 6%,
Right.
and you're required to put in 5%, and you can optional amount. So each year, say for 5 years or 10 years, you take 1% of the raise and you put it in retirement. You don't notice it because it's coming from the increase in your salary.
Right.
And 5 years later, your company puts in 6, you're not putting in 10, that's 16%. If you do it for 10 years, that's 21%. So this slow incremental stuff. One of the tricks too, I think, if you have a spouse who's reluctant to save, when the tech bubble burst, I think our investments went down about 20%. And I told Mary, well, we need to put all of our raises away for a few years. And she went along with it. So for the next 3 or 4 years, all of our raises went into retirement. And we went from, I think it was about, I forget, I have to look it up, maybe 20,000 a year to 35,000 a year going into retirement, just from putting the raises in. So it was a subtle reduction in our in our standard of living, that inflation kept going and we're spending the same nominal amount, but we're spending less money because the money wouldn't go as far around, but we didn't notice it. I remember, I think it was the second year, she came home and said, I got a 4% raise, so I get to keep any of it. I said, no, it's got to go to retirement. And she went along with it. Then with the Great Recession, we paid off our house in 2007. The Great Recession hit in 2008, and we're again down 20%. And we were down a third at that time. And we had extra money, so I just started. She managed the amount of money she put aside, but I control on my side, so I just kept adding more each year to put aside for retirement. And she was keeping the same amount of her money, but as a couple, we were saving more. Right. I don't know how else. It sounds a little bit sneaky, but she knew what I was doing. She went along with it, and that worked out pretty well. So I think we put about almost $1.5 million into retirement.
Wow.
Throughout our career. So the catch up was really expensive. Getting 35,000 at age 36, we missed that doubling. Basically, your money. The rule 72 is you divide the rate of return into 72. So if you make 10%, then in 7 years your money doubles. If you make 2%, it takes 36 years for it to double.
Whoa.
So we missed from, I don't know, say age 25, we missed maybe a couple doublings. I don't know. I have to do. And that was, so you play catch up.
Can you explain that just a little bit in more detail, just in case somebody's unfamiliar with the rule of 72?
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, that's first time I'm hearing it.
Yeah. So if you have, let's see, I'm trying to think of a good way to explain it. The way money accumulates, it's an exponential curve,
right?
And mathematically, it's not exactly right, but basically, the amount of time to double is 72 divided by your rate of return. So the S&P 500 returns on average about 12%. So if you got 12% per year, 12 into 72 is 6 years. It's how long it takes for your money to double.
Oh, got it. Got it.
Got it. And if CDs pay, like now, if CDs are paying 4%, 4 into 72 would be, I think it's 18 years. So it takes 3 times as long.
Okay.
So if you have a friend who's risk averse and says, I don't want to lose any money, they're giving away the higher return. And it takes longer for their money to double. They're not going to have as much. The cost is that the return fluctuates, that there's no investment that returns a steady 12%. That doesn't exist.
That's true. Right.
But the S&P 500 returns 12 on average, but it bounces around a lot.
Yes.
The standard deviation is 22. So those are some incredible highs and lows. So you have to kind of, fasten your seatbelt and get ready to go.
That's it.
Or just don't look.
Or don't look, yeah.
Yeah, and just kind of try to manage those emotions. Again, probably what behavioral finance is what it's rooted in, you know?
So something I feel like behavioral finance taught me was actually to look forward to the lows.
Sure.
Because
it's on sale, right?
It's on sale.
Yeah.
So whenever it does dip, then you kind of want to try to invest a little bit more if you can. You know, if you're on some type of like plan where you just invest the same amount every month or whatever, cool. But I mean, if you see it go down, especially if it goes down significantly, try to throw some extra down in there.
Well, Dale, that's kind of what I picked up. What you said, you and your wife were doing was when you did see a dip in the market. Not only were you already on a catch up plan, but when you did see it dip down, you said, well, we're going to put more in now. All the raises are going here.
Yeah, to kind of supercharge it.
Yeah, and that's
dips,
good.
Dips are hard to take. I think the first dip was the tech bubble, and I guess 20%. So we're probably down about, 50,000 or so. The Great Recession, we're down a third. We're down 400,000.
Yeah.
The COVID crash took 6 weeks. We were down to 800,000.
Yeah.
It's about 20%.
Right.
But it came back quickly.
It did.
And it's really easy to get scared and say it's gonna go down forever. I'm gonna lose all my money.
Right.
But if you gotta have, I'd say to be a successful investor, you need 3 things. You need to be patient. You need to believe in capitalism, which is to believe in the stock market, and you be able to take a loss.
Yeah.
So you have to trust the market, that the market's going to come back up.
Yeah.
And basically, society depends upon the stock market. I mean, we all have a stake on it going well. If you don't have money in the market, that capital is going to create jobs and opportunities for everybody.
Right.
Even if the people at the top are the ones that are kind of benefiting the most.
Sure. Yeah.
Interesting stat. The top 10% have, I think it's 23% of wealth. The top 1% have 23%. The next, I'm blanking on the numbers. But anyway, the bottom half have like 1% of wealth.
Right.
Total wealth. So the question is, how can I get out of that group to be in one of the higher groups?
Sure.
And $1 million net worth will put you in the top 10%. So it's not that much money.
No, I guess not.
You look at this stuff.
Right.
So it's doable. I like to try to tell my class. I'm one of the few people teaching about finance who shares personal information. That Cody learned more than he wanted to know about my net worth, my losses, how much money we put away each year for retirement, yada, yada, yada. But I think it's really helpful to have an N01. I grew up in a low-income family. Nobody talked about money.
Right.
I don't have any role models. So in class, I try to share as much information as I can to kind of say, so if we could do it, then you can do it.
Yeah.
There's nothing special about us. We just decided to do it, and it's some knowledge about it.
Yeah.
It's very practical, very, very relatable, and just, I mean, you can, if you had something to share on your screen, you could always share a screen, but, I mean, it was very, like I said, practical. He showed us every step by step what he did,
right?
And that anyone could kind of do that,
right?
Same thing if they put their mind to it.
And I see that's very commendable because you'd mentioned that you didn't really speak about money in your family, but I don't think you're alone in that. I think there's a lot of families that money seems to be, for some reason, some sort of a taboo subject, and whereas we probably need to be more transparent. So you offering yourself up like that, no doubt you reach some students that grew up probably the same way, where money wasn't really openly discussed.
Yeah, my own mother, she said her father never spoke about money, never, they lost actually, personal story, but they lost a lot of money in the stock market, like where they had to sell their house, blah, blah, blah. So, but she never knew why. She never knew anything about that. She just knew that
We're moving.
We're moving.
We're moving one day.
Stock
Yeah.
market went down. We got to move now.
Yeah.
So, but had she kind of been explained, maybe she could have, I don't know, learned and I don't know.
Sure.
Learn something at least.
Well, look, and it's the same thing. It's just the passing of knowledge, sharing of knowledge. Like we're just saying, we're going to do this for our children.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about it with our kids.
Yeah.
Or
even this right here, just this podcast. We're just trying to pass knowledge, to others who are interested. In
absolutely.
It's kind of.
I know one thing. I talked to some coworkers at work, and I mentioned how we were going to be speaking to you, Dale, behavioral finance, and a couple of their ears perked up. And they're like, "Hey, I'm gonna want to tune in and check in." So
yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I just had Craig Blanchfield on last month. Yeah,
Craig's one of my former students.
Yeah. Oh, really? That's awesome.
He took behavioral finance.
That's really cool. I don't think he mentioned that part, but
no,
he did say he might hop on to the live stream and heckle a little bit.
That'd be great. Love to see Craig.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, but he had a cool success story. But when COVID hit, everything went down. Right. Everyone panicked. A lot of people pulled out. I mean, obviously that's kind of what causes the crash. People pulling out, right?
Yeah.
People pulling out their money. Is that correct, Dale?
Yeah, that would be a contributing factor.
Yeah, that's not the only thing, but yeah, that's a. I mean, we went on total lockdown for crying out loud. So I mean, like there was no money being transferred for a lot of things.
Well, stock prices are like it's what people are buying for. So people are selling, and the people are buying for the lower price. But I mean, it drives the price down, right? Of all the stocks and everything. So anyway, basically what happened was when everything went down, Craig threw a bunch of money in.
Okay.
Just into the,
he saw the red tag sale.
He saw the red tag sale. He saw the blue light special.
Yeah.
And then just, crossed his fingers. And then obviously everything went right back up and cha-ching.
Yeah.
So it's a good opportunity. And that's kind of also what taught me, like, hey, when the stock market's down, don't panic. Do the opposite,
You would think that this would be, again, common knowledge now, right? Because how many, this is something that's in history.
But
we study it in history.
That's the psychological part of it. People are scared because they don't know, is it going to keep going down? Because that's one thing that could happen. Is, you put your money in and then it keeps going down. And then you say, okay, well, technically I just lost that money. It's like, well, you didn't, because you don't lose until you pull out. You don't lose until you sell.
Well, so
I think
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We should know too that if you bought Enron went down and it stayed down and it went away.
Right.
True. There are
so if you invest in individual stocks,
yeah.
But in terms of the market as a whole,
right.
The big indexes.
Yeah, I've invested in a stock that went away before, and it's no fun. That's a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah,
but it's a good lesson to learn.
Yeah, I think we should talk too about starting early. So we started late. Now we have a nice retirement. We can spend money. We have enough money to last us the rest of our lives.
Great.
If we'd started, but Mary retired at age 68. She chose to work till then. I'm still working because I like my job.
Right.
The people, my students who were millionaires by age 40, they're talking about retiring at age 45, 50, and so forth. The options are there. I like to say 3 things that being good with money give you. One is peace of mind. Another is options. Boss comes in tomorrow, transferring you to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. You're paycheck to paycheck. You say, when do I report? If you manage money well, you say, I'll see you around. I can go 4 or 6 months. And the final one is a chance to be generous if you want to be.
Sure.
If there's some cause, could be your church, could be the school you went to, could be special pals, whatever it might be.
Yeah, definitely. I think in that same book, maybe Psychology of Money, I think they talked about that as well, how it gives you power over your time. I think that's the biggest dividend that financial independence pays.
Yeah,
is because your time is the most valuable thing. It gives you the power to say, I don't have to, if I want to quit my job or if I get fired,
sure.
I don't have to take the first job that comes along just because I have to, pay the bills, or, I can afford to not work for X amount of time or whatever the case may be, so it gives you, I guess, power over your time is kind of the most important thing. Which, I mean, I know you work a lot. I work, several hours.
Right.
It's the one thing that I wish I didn't do so much is work. So many hours. I guess if I had a nice nest egg or whatever the case may be, I wouldn't have to work so many hours, and I could afford more time at home or just doing whatever I want to do. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I guess that's one of the best, I think, things that money can buy. Money can't buy happiness, but it can buy time and the power to do what you want with it.
You have to be willing to do some of these things. Then I'll say this. Last year, because you mentioned the way I work, last year I made some of the most money I've ever made. Right, working 12-hour shifts, working swing shifts, right, and signing up for just about all the overtime I could stomach, right. And then this year, because of supply chain issues and market demands and what have you, it's the complete opposite. It's actually the mirror opposite. I'm probably going to make the least amount of money I've ever made, right? So it's so funny to have seen that back to back. I feel very fortunate to have seen that back to back because it did show me the importance of time, and I signed up for all that overtime and we were living great and we didn't have to worry about anything. And, we could spend and our lifestyle reflected that. Whereas this year I had to have kind of like a come to Jesus moment with the family and was like, hey, look, they're actually cutting our hours. Now I'm not at a risk of layoff or anything. We'll be okay, but we have to weather this storm. And I'm at home more, and I'm finding that I can fill that time and those experiences pretty financial, like cheaply, or so, or rather inexpensively.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that brings about a greater joy. So you're absolutely right. If you can manage those finances, and you don't feel obligated to sign up for that get on that overtime book and what have you.
Yeah.
And you can stay home and take part in the things that actually matter the most.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, how much overtime do you think you gain between making the most and how much you're making, I guess, you expected to make this year?
You mean what's that difference going to be?
Yeah.
It's about $80,000 difference.
Whoa.
As of right now. Yeah, that's a lot of overtime.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly where I'm at right now. Like I'm $80,000 less gross at this moment, year to date right now than I was last year. Mm-hmm. And I mean that's one of the reasons why guys like me who grew up in this area get into the plants. We weren't going to go to college. We weren't going to go get I don't want to say fancy degree. I don't mean it like that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We were just going to be blue collar kids.
Yeah.
That's how we grew up, and we're going to get in the plants, and we're going to make good money.
Yeah.
And most people do that. What's funny, not all companies do this. My company surely didn't, but ExxonMobil actually takes their new hires through a financial course on how to manage their money and teaches them about retirement. Yeah, I remember I had a buddy of mine that he hired in with Exxon, and he said, man, you won't believe the class they put me in. I said, they're doing that for a reason. I said, because you're about to make some money here. You're going to have some extra income.
Yeah.
Stuff that we're not used to growing up with. And it's so funny. I remember telling somebody at work, I said, I got such a middle class blue collar state of mind. Like because we were talking about the Powerball, if you won, it was like up to almost like 900 million. Yeah. The cash value was 400 something, whatever it was.
It's $1 billion now.
Well, yeah. Well, and somebody actually won it. But anyways, I remember thinking like, I'm so middle class with my thinking. Like if someone gave me that large amount of money, I'd be like, so maybe I can buy 2 side-by-sides now. Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? I don't know what to do, But I mean, obviously everyone fantasizes about what they would do if they won the big jackpot and, this, that, and the other. But it's just funny. It's just again, I'm not alone in that. My demographic, that's kind of how we think. And we got to get a handle on that and do better, you know? Don't rely on that overtime income that's coming in extra. Put in more in your retirement.
Yeah. If you think about it, whatever debt you had, whatever credit card bills, your truck or whatever, you could have paid off a big chunk of that with that 80,000.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's
hopefully some of that went that direction.
It did.
Good.
No doubt.
I think when things are flush, if you make provisions to get ahead, paying down debt, building up your reserve fund, retirement, that's good philosophy.
Yeah.
So how much should somebody have like in a reserve fund, like an emergency fund?
They say 3 to 6 months of expenses.
Right.
So that would be like, your mortgage, groceries, gasoline, electricity, that kind of stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So 6 months of expenses, and obviously the goal would be to have no debt along with that.
Yes. Yeah. And life.
I don't know how many people actually live
Debt-free.
like that. Yeah, like it seems like a tall order when somebody in that lower 50%
Yeah.
thinks about it, because most people live paycheck to paycheck, or at least month to month, where if they didn't work the following month, they wouldn't be able to pay the bills. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're definitely in a bind at that moment for sure.
Yeah, and I see that a lot at my
It's
work and things like that. It's
Yeah. Change in thinking. You have to change the family system.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it. Having some place to hide the money,
There you go.
to hide it from. Mary has a friend who's not very good with money. At one point, she had a financial planner. The financial planner held her money and gave her cash to spend.
Like an allowance.
Like an allowance. I think that lasted about 6 months. And she then was back on her own, and things are back to as they were before. But that was, for her, that's sort of what it took. So it really, people are wired differently.
Sure.
Didn't you tell me you had an allowance you gave yourself?
Yeah, I have it used to be, I don't know, 40 years ago, it was $20 a week. I'd buy gas, I'd go out to lunch, I'd buy music with that. $20 went a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Now my allowance, I think, is $100 a week.
Right. That's a very interesting point that you say that, though, how the dollar stretched better back then versus now. And of course, we're all feeling it right now, just at the grocery store.
Yeah.
You go there to buy a handful of things and you're walking out $80. We know this. I'm not saying anything that we don't already feel, but you have to, how do you weather that? How do you still manage to try to buy you're trying to buy the same things you bought last year.
Yeah.
They cost more.
Everything's going up except your paycheck.
So if that's eaten into your, now that's going to eat into your potential to invest it.
True.
That money. Right? So how do you manage that?
Yeah. Well, what's the best way to live below your means, basically?
I think you always try to cut expenses, like power to choose. We're given the opportunity to pick our electric provider.
Sure.
And it makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
I see ads where they say we pay the hottest days of the month, or we pay, I don't know, half the month or something, or you only pay the weekends or something.
Okay.
But they're charging a higher rate, and they're charging more than the bottom dollar provider.
Right.
So I think everywhere you can, you look to find a better way. Things like car repairs. Do you use your local mechanic, or do you use the dealership?
Right.
Can make a difference.
Right.
No comment.
Yeah, you use the dealership, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, dealership, definitely.
No, I get that. And, unfortunately this year, I actually had to do something that I haven't done before. I actually took a hit on my home insurance, and I purposely told my insurance agent, I said, listen, lower my coverage and raise my deductible, please, because right now we're in a pinch. And I said, so I need that premium to be as low as it can go, Right. And she was able to help me out, because I was looking at almost $1,000 difference as far as, or up or more rather. And I was able to reduce that down to I think it was like $100 more. It still went up.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do.
Yeah.
But I had to make those concessions. And unfortunately, and I've just kind of got the fingers crossed, we were hit with a dang tornado this year in Deer Park, Texas. That's never happened in this neck of the woods. We were hit with a bona fide F3 tornado. Wow. We had a major hailstorm. All of my neighbors were getting new roofs. I didn't get anything. But anyways, but again, fingers crossed. We didn't really sustain that much damage. What was damaged, I was able to pay for out of pocket, no problems. And or repair it myself. So I'm kind of hoping that this year, same kind of thing.
Yeah.
We're able to quite literally weather whatever storm might come, just because, again, I had to make those concessions on my insurance coverage. If we get hit with something crazy, I'm not going to get a whole lot from Allstate. They pretty much wrote the book on it, but It is what it is. So I guess you're
I
right.
think that track expenses
Yeah.
just to find out where the money goes.
Right. Where's the money go?
A friend of mine, he's now 93.
Mm-hmm.
He was an accountant. He was a treasurer for Brown and Root. So he was a very, very responsible guy. He tracks it to the penny. I don't. I do a tally at the end of the year. If I'm within a couple thousand, I'm good.
Yeah.
But I know the major categories. This much went to insurance, to cars, to retirement, to healthcare,
Right.
to food, to clothing for my wife, to music for me.
Sure.
And you look for areas. And one of the things so instead of having my bank give me a summary, I use a spreadsheet and I copy from online.
Okay.
So each of the numbers I look at it, and I think about it. So when you kind of get that kind of sense of where the money's going,
Right.
so you see where the problem area is, say, well, how can I cut? That's a helpful thing to do.
Absolutely. That's cool. So you use a spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet, anything?
Yeah, just an Excel spreadsheet.
Cool.
I'm sure there are more efficient ways to do it.
Oh, yeah.
But
Another thing I learned from this class, I do the same thing. It's
Track your money.
yeah, from the bank, you can download all your expenses in an Excel spreadsheet, and then I just go through and categorize them. Was this food? Was this gas? Was this entertainment, etc. And then use a quick little formula, sum them all up, and you can see how much money is going into what category. And then you can kind of decide, okay, well, we spent too much on entertainment. We spent, too much at the grocery store, or, too much on fast food,
Right.
just shows you where your money's going.
That's smart.
Yeah. A good expression is what gets measured gets managed.
Nice.
Yeah, what gets measured gets managed.
Yeah,
we might talk about financial dashboard. What numbers do you pay attention to? Net worth is the most important number.
Can you briefly explain net worth?
What's that, Cody?
Can you briefly explain net worth to people maybe
Sure.
who don't understand?
So net worth
the
is your
concept?
total assets, everything you own minus your liabilities. So if I own a $100,000 house, I owe $50,000 on it. 100,000 minus 50,000, that's 50,000 of the house I own. That goes in my net worth.
Yeah.
Plus the value of my car, any savings I have, any investments, and so forth. And that number should go up over time. That's a number that most people don't know about or don't pay attention to. But that's the most important number. That's the one you want to see go up over time. Other things you might put on your dashboard, money you owe, your credit cards, your mortgage, you have student loans, your bank accounts, your checking, your savings account, your reserve account. So I just track those over time. Those are things I pay attention to.
Yeah.
The net worth I look at once a year on January 1st. I look at the investments first every month. But I look at the bank accounts every day. I go on to see if we're getting Social Security now, Mary's getting a draw from retirement. So I look to make sure those checks got there, and I just kind of track to see how things are going. If there's extra money, it goes to the reserve account.
Right. Absolutely.
So back to your story. When did you, I guess, I can ask, when did you become a millionaire? Like, do you remember
In
when?
2007,
2007? That's
we
when
became the millionaires next door.
And you're using net worth to calculate that?
Net worth, yes. So that's everything. That's house, that's retirement,
Yeah, so
cars.
it's not just the physical money you have in your bank account. Not just the bank account number is 1 million. It's all your assets.
Yeah, the net
minus
worth.
your debt essentially.
Oh, okay. Got it.
You know what I mean? So yeah, if you have a $1 million house, but like you said, you owe 800,000 on it. Well, you're not a millionaire in your house.
Yeah.
You're only at 200,000 there as far as that goes. So okay, and then where did you go from there in 2007?
I'm trying to think. So now we're at over 5 million, roughly 5.5. So it's gone up over time. We took advantage of the bounce back after the Great Recession.
Right.
We took actually we're within a hair of 6 million in net worth, but then that was on January 1st of 2022, and we dropped down to under 5 million. So we're down $1 million last year, but now we're almost back up to where we were before. It's bounced back.
You said
So the big advantage, once you get your first million, the second million's a lot easier. And you get your second million, the third million's a lot easier than that. And the fourth million, fifth million, 6 million. So if we'd started at age 20, I'd probably be talking about, well, we're worth 10 million or 15 million. But because we got started late, we put 1.5 million into retirement, and now we're sitting at about 5.5 million with our investments and so forth because we started so late.
Yeah, I mean, you said it doubles every 6 years if you're invested in the S&P. So I mean,
yeah, every 7. Yeah,
every 7.
So, yeah, roughly. It's so getting in and playing the game and being patient. As I said, it's drudgery at first, but once you hit the upward part, then it gets to be fun. The fun part's when you're making money.
Yeah.
The losing part isn't much fun. I don't like that at all.
Oh yeah, I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, so
To get the big returns, you got to take some losses. It's part of life. I played safe. It's in a CD. I'm making 2%.
No,
yeah.
no.
Or if you're holding
For
cash,
your retirement money, that's not good enough.
Right. No, you're absolutely right about that.
if you put it in the shoebox, it's actually losing money.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, when you count for recession. Inflation rather. So would you recommend or do you yourself use a financial advisor or someone to manage y'all's financial wealth or anything, or y'all do that yourself?
I don't. I need to. We have over 500,000 invested with TIAA. So I've met with an advisor there once,
Right.
one of their sort of downtown advisors. I need to do that again. That was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
But I don't. Let's see. Advisors are incentivized to put your money. Many advisors are incentivized to put your money in things that make them money.
Sure.
So to put you in actively managed funds with high fees, to have an advisory fee, which can be pretty high, it can be 1% or so.
Right.
So I always figured I thought I knew enough to do it on my own. Now it's good to go in for fine tuning, but I don't need somebody to tell me, every 6 months what I can spend and so forth.
Right.
Or to tell me. But that's my situation, somewhat unusual in that. With degrees in business and teaching behavioral finance, I'm in the stuff all the time. I'm learning stuff. I know people I can ask questions of. But we've made plenty of mistakes, and they're mistakes that advisor could have saved us from. I mentioned the 500,000 in cash. The advisor would probably have a smarter way to handle that. Most of it's in I bonds, in inflation bonds, and about 80,000 of it's just in essentially a money market account, which is our reserve fund.
Okay, which makes I'm sure more than just a regular savings account.
Yeah, somewhat more.
Yeah. That's why I opened up that Betterment account. And I told you when I started managing my own escrows, I was like, you know what? I'll just take care of this myself. I was tired of getting a check a letter rather from our mortgage company saying, hey, we anticipate your escrow is going to be X amount more, so we're going to be charging you this amount. And I was like, you know what? No, I'm just going to manage this myself, and I'll have the money grow from it. And Betterment, since it's an online bank, they don't have a lot of
fees?
Well, yeah, right. They don't have brick and mortar places or anything like that, so they can afford to have a money market savings, or what they call it, like their savings that bring, I think 4% annual yield, which is
Good.
way more than 0.25%.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. One of the interesting differences in generations, people of my generation don't trust online sources.
Right.
People of your generation don't trust in-person people.
Yeah.
And trust online. So it's a really, really interesting juxtaposition.
Yeah, no doubt.
But I think a lot of it is just to think about it and to read about it. You can read stuff online. The Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, you have columnists that write every week. The Chronicle does too. You find authors you like. We should mention Dave Ramsey in the Total Money Makeover.
Oh yeah.
In my judgment, Dave Ramsey gives lousy investment advice. And in my opinion, no one should follow Dave's advice. He says to be 100% in stocks no matter how old you are.
Oh, okay.
But he gives wonderful advice for getting out of debt. So if you look up his 7 baby steps, they've helped tens and tens of thousands of people get out of debt. And they're really, really helpful, I think.
Was that the guy, the kind of loud guy who, very inspirational, motivational guy that you
Kramer.
showed the videos of?
No.
I don't know.
Who was that? Do you remember? The people he had people come on his radio show, and
That's Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, that's Dave Ramsey.
That's
Yes.
Dave Ramsey.
yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
There was a few
Yeah.
videos I watched in your class that were kind of motivational, inspirational. There was that one. There was the one about fire. Financial independence, retire
early. Yeah.
Good. And I like that Dave Ramsey has people who have gotten out of debt, go on his show. Actually, they go to his place in Nashville and they scream at the top of the lungs, we're debt free.
Right.
But those, it's really drudgery to keep, you got your system, you keep working it. Watching those occasionally is uplifting. It's inspirational, as Cody said.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
here are people who didn't think they could get out of debt who are out of debt and how free they feel.
Right. That's got to be a good
one
feeling.
one that Cody saw. If you go on YouTube, you look up Dave Ramsey and you look up Stephen, the trainer from Austin, Texas. That's roughly 12 minutes. Dave Ramsey, Stephen, the trainer from Austin, Texas. That Stephen was riding his motorcycle and a drunk driver hit him and lost his leg below his knee.
Man.
So he's continued as a trainer, and he's also continued powerlifting. He competes with people that have both their limbs in his placing. So he's it's just a wonderful clip because he came from such a down place, and now he's on top of things, and he's so excited about it, and he's so emotional about it.
Right.
That those are just really helpful for keeping your focus and keeping motivated.
Yeah, because it's easy to lose motivation, lose track. And it's, real easy to get down in the dumps. Again, kind of back to the psychology of things, you can let that doldrum play out, or you can do the dirty work, do the hard, dirty work, and just kind of stick with it, work the plan, try to stay as consistent and honest with it as you can, and the results. That's a great term. Yeah,
Thomas, to say honest with it.
Honest, yeah, because the results will speak for themselves. I mean, it's just like anybody who works out or tries to diet and stuff.
Yeah.
And the very beginning of it is just you don't see any results, and it's just such a lifestyle change, and can be very inconvenient and all these other different things. But
hard work.
Once those results start to appear, it's real easy to
snowball a little bit.
Yeah, because then you're motivated by your own results. But if you can supplement that with watching, and when you find yourself down in the dumps about something financially, like you said, click on that YouTube video of that man Steven in Austin, Texas. Yeah. Maybe it'll inspire you to stay the course.
Oh yeah. I mean, being in debt can be crippling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it can be depressing. I read a I guess not article, but a story about a guy who was in so much debt. He killed himself.
Dang, he took his life.
He took his own life. He had a family. He took a last picture of him. A little picture of him just weeping, just because he saw no other way out. So I mean, it can be debilitating, and it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But obviously, that's never the answer. And there's always a way out. You know what I mean? Like you just have to work hard. Be extremely responsible. You know what I mean?
Discipline.
That's the better word. Discipline. And you can do it. I mean, I was myself in crippling debt for, I guess the better part of my 20s. Yeah. And then just through diligence and just attacking it full force.
How'd it feel?
Fantastic. I think I actually paid off my last credit card at the time. Yeah. During Dale's class, while I was in there, great, and it was great. Yeah.
And look at that positive reinforcement you're getting too by taking this class.
Yeah, it was very serendipitous, and it felt really good. So
good deal.
Do you have any other books or anything that you recommend? I know you mentioned a few. You sent me a few. I know you had me read several. So The Millionaire Next Door, A Random Walk Down Wall Street, Misbehaving by Richard Thaler. And then I talked about Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. And I'm reading right now The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. I don't know if you've read that one.
No, I haven't. I think Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey is a good book. Mm-hmm. Richard Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I think is a good book.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, yeah.
When you read that, you got to keep in mind that he rode the Hawaiian land boom, that he was buying and selling real estate as it was rocketing upward. But I think I like about his story, he talked about his poor dad was his biological dad, who was a had a bachelor's degree, was a bureaucrat in the Wayne government. His dad's goal for him was for Richard to get a bachelor's degree and work in government. His best buddy, Mike, had a dad who was an entrepreneur, and Mike's dad took Kiyosaki under his wing and taught him about wealth building.
Yeah.
So his buddy's dad was his rich dad. So I think that metaphor is really good. When I give talks about money, or I teach my class, I'll tell that story and show the cover of the book. I'll say, for the purpose of this class or for the next hour, think of me as your rich dad. So I think to identify somebody who you think is pretty good with money, who you can talk to, is a good thing. But yeah, I think that's. We should talk for just a minute about losses, how you take losses.
Yeah.
I think Cody has said 3 or 4 times, don't look. I think that's great advice. If you have to look, think about it in terms of your net worth. When we were down a third in our retirement account, we started at 1.2 million and we finished at the lowest point at 800,000. If you say we lost 400,000, which was quite a bit more than we earned that during that time, it's a crushing loss. We've got to get it. We can't take any more of this.
Sure.
But if you say, okay, I was at 1.2 million, now I'm at 800,000, it's not as big a deal. It's easier. So you always think about losses in terms of your overall amount or net worth.
I like that. You reframe it so that way you have a positive outlook on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I read, I think, one of those books, when the market's down and you see all those losses, maybe due to some type of recession, it's like, well, you think, okay, well, I'm down, 100,000, 800,000, whatever, but you're in a recession. So that means
take that into consideration.
The cost of living is, things are going to be a little bit cheaper. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or at least not go up. Yeah. So I think a lot of it's just mind games.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it.
Yep.
You try to fool yourself into doing good things.
You have to.
Hide your money away. Don't look at losses. Don't compete with your neighbors.
The hide your money. I like the hide your money. I like y'all's the way that you and your wife Mary had handled that, because you both have to sign off on this one account. So if someone I guess is tempted to, let's just say pull out $5,000 for a down payment on a car or something, or maybe just pull out the whole amount and buy the car all outright. Well, that second person has to co-sign on it, and then that gives you that opportunity to go, are we sure about this? Is this something that, and that can be helpful, especially if you have a strong partner by your side that's, goal oriented, that can kind of smack you out of it, and be like, remember what we're trying to do here. You know? But if you don't have that, then you still need to find another way where, so for instance, okay, I have that Betterment account, right? It's specifically supposed to be for insurance premiums and taxes and things of that nature. But I'm just going to be honest, there's been times where I've dipped into it for things other than that, because it's there and I have access to it. It would almost be better if I was able to, I trust you, we've been friends for a very long time. You know what I'm saying? I trust you with I almost feel like I'd have to give you the money.
Right.
And and only you have access to it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that way I wouldn't be tempted, or if I was, you can kind of be that voice of reason, that the good devil, or excuse me, angel devil, on the shoulder.
Yeah.
I mean, for a small fee, I'm sure he can be happy to manage your money.
Oh, yeah.
More than happy to.
Here we go. Money managers.
For a nominal fee.
Yeah, but I guess you need to find something that would work to where you can hide that money successfully.
Something different works for everybody.
Right.
But it's just, I think it's like life. It's a practice. It's something you work at. You don't flip a switch and everything changes.
Yeah.
You just have to keep working at it day by day.
Yeah.
You make mistakes and you backslide. You just try to keep after it.
Yeah, I think Craig said the first step is just creating the I guess network of taking the money out, even if it's only a couple bucks, $20 out of your account, out of your a paycheck or whatever it is, and then just connecting it to some type of other savings account.
Yeah,
just to have the network connected. It's just $20 a month or a paycheck, whatever it is, and then steadily over time increase that. But having the framework there, just creates that little bit of a connection to get it started.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you've already got the the way for it to already happen automatically,
yeah. So so you don't even see it. You never even saw it, in your account to begin with.
Right.
You don't feel the loss of it, leaving your account.
Yeah.
It's just, it was never there to begin with.
Yeah. I think a metaphor I find helpful is when you manage money well, it's like running downhill. When you don't manage money well, it's like running uphill.
Yeah.
It's a strain. And my guess, Cody, it's been 3 years, 4 years since you took my class. So you're out of debt for 4 years. But now you're just kind of cruising. You don't worry about money. You got things covered. There's money going toward retirement. You got a good reserve account. You're just kind of cruising along.
I'm getting there. Getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. But your whole how you experience life changes when you're kind of free of that burden of making the money stuff work.
Yeah, it definitely helps being debt free. Like I said, I made the, I guess, unwise financial decision of buying a new truck, so that kind of helped or didn't help my debt situation. But
Well, you had a friend in the industry.
Yeah.
yeah,
and isn't it fair to say too, though, that you can take on some amount of debt as long as it's manageable,
manageable, right?
right?
Yeah.
I mean, so your house, obviously, your house note
That's good debt,
is supposed to be considered good debt,
right?
and then typically you look at a car and that's bad debt, or
It
whatever.
depreciates, houses
because
appreciate.
of, because of all of that. But I mean, it's as long as you can still manage it and fit it into your budgets, you should be fine.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. As long as you never miss a payment, that's horrible for like your credit and things like that.
Of course. But if you're missing payments, then it wasn't fit for your financial
Right.
budget in the first place. You see
Right.
what I'm saying? If you're missing payments.
Right.
So that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
A lot of good things here that we spoke about, Dale.
I know you had a few other books you sent me. Well, Mikey, you have a few pulled up. Mikey J's he's our producer.
Uh-huh.
So there was the five. Was it 5 secrets you must discover before you die? Was that one of them?
Yeah, that's a really good book. That's written by a former minister named John Izzo. Now he's a consultant.
Okay.
He and his colleagues interviewed 200 wise elders, people over 60 who were considered wise, and asked them about their life. And they pulled out these 5 lessons. So the lessons aren't that earth-shaking, I think, to most of us. Be true to yourself, leave no regrets, become love, live in the moment, and give more than you receive. But the stories are fantastic.
Yes.
One of the stories, Izzo was a new minister, and he went to a funeral home to oversee a service for a man who lived in the community for many years. And it was only Izzo and the funeral director, that this guy had so alienated everybody around him, nobody came to his funeral.
Wow.
He had kids that lived within driving distance. So I just can't imagine being that mean to people.
Yeah.
Another story, a woman was flying home to her mother's funeral, and she went to visitation, and there was a person came and stayed, which no one knew, the woman and her family. So she walked over and said, "I'm the daughter of the deceased. How did you know my mother?" And the woman said, "Well, I was very despondent. I was thinking of taking my life. I happened to sit by your mother when I was riding home on the bus, and she encouraged me, and I'm here today." So I didn't know her name, but I saw her picture in the obituary, so I came to pay my respects.
Whoa.
So it's just the book is just filled with stories like that.
Right.
My favorite among the 5 things you must learn is no regrets. Izzo interviewed 200 wise elders, and nobody regretted something they'd done. They only regretted things they hadn't done.
Mm-hmm.
So take the trip, write the book, all these different things.
Right.
So I really like that book. Another book I like is Michael Feiner, The Finer Points of Leadership. So it's one of the best management books I know of. It contains no research. It's just Feiner's observations. He was chief operating officer for PepsiCo, and he retired and he wrote this book. So it's about his experiences. It's things like tell the emperor has no clothes. It's building a cathedral 1 and 2. So as Cody is working with a sales team, it's not just about making money. It's about helping families. It's about helping them with transportation so they can get their kids to where they need to be, so they can get to their job, they succeed.
Got it.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah. And, I feel like a lot of corporations, and that's funny because Lubrizol just put out, that's who I work for. Lubrizol just put out a survey, and they wanted employee feedback on their mission statement. And I kind of thought that was not necessarily, I actually was appreciative of that, to be honest with you. They wanted some sort of input from all of their employees. But when I was reading their mission statements, it was real easy to see that what they're trying to do is we can just say in one hand, we just make chemicals. Well, yeah, of course we make chemicals and we make certain products, using proprietary formulas and equipment and what have you. But it went further to basically give us like a bigger purpose, if you will, And that's kind of what I was getting back whenever you were speaking, Dale, about saying, hey, Cody, to his sales team, we're not just selling people cars. We're giving them transportation that they can take their families back and forth safely and get to their jobs safely and just things of that nature. Can help. We're selling them the tools to be productive members in society and better their lives and everything else.
Yeah.
And you frame that purpose in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone needs a car to do what they need to do.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I think it gives you also too. It's like it gives you more of a. Okay, I'm not just trying to sell you a car so I can make the commission, so I can make all the good money. I mean, don't get me wrong. Yes, I need to do that to provide for my families and provide for our families. But if you frame it in that sort of way, now what you're doing, because let's be real, car salesmen don't really have the best reputation.
Right.
But if you were able to frame it in that kind of way, now a car salesman looks like somebody who's a noble person, someone that's out there doing a good thing for society.
Yep.
Yeah,
I sold a car to a woman just the other day, and she needed a car to get to work. Right, her car broke down.
Sure.
She couldn't support her family without the car.
Yeah.
So it's definitely it's a good feeling to be able to help people
exactly
like that. So
gives you greater purpose.
Yeah. What else you got, Dale?
I think the other book is by John Cowan. It's called Small Decencies. He also was a minister turned consultant, but it's just observations on life. One of my favorites, he's got a chapter, let me check the title here, titled Sailing Through a Career. And he uses a metaphor, a sailboat versus motorboat. I have a brother-in-law who worked as a physician for 40 years, now retired. In high school, he decided to want to be a family practice physician, and that he went straight there. So he's the motorboat. Other people are sailboats. The wind kind of blows them different directions. So I had 5 majors, 3 degrees in 3 different areas. I'm one of the world's biggest sailboats.
Yeah.
But I went interesting places. I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't know about behavioral finance if I hadn't gone those places. So I just had to accept who I was. If you're a sailboat, it's reassuring to hear about that other people are sailboats. You just have to be patient until you find some place where things are good and you sink your anchor.
Right.
So that's the kind of thing that Cowan talks about in his book, Small Decencies. But again, it's blanking out.
Yeah.
So,
what about some of the other major principles that you talked about during class? What are some of the bigger points, some of the broader pictures that you had us learn in your behavioral finance class?
I think one of the big things is learning how the system works, so you can work the system. Learning how the system works, so you can work the system. So I think in behavioral finance, we're trying to learn how money works. We're also trying to learn how our minds work, so that we can optimize both of them. So you're always trying to figure out how things work and then how you can manipulate it. So for manipulating money, out of sight, out of mind works great. Cody, you mentioned Craig's recommendation that even $20, you have it automatically taken out of your account. It's out of sight, out of mind. You don't think about it. Your retirement money, whatever you have taken out in addition to the required amount, out of sight, out of mind. You never think about it. So I'm always, if you can see inside my head, I'm always trying to figure out systems, figure out people so I can manage them as most effectively. Typically, when I get what I want, other people are getting what they want too. So it's better for everybody. Is part of it.
Yeah, I agree. Let me try to think. It has been a few years since I've taken your class.
Oh yeah,
I do remember. You always had little stories, little videos. What are some of the ones you remember off the top of your head that were had like a big impact or just had a good message at least.
Yeah, I think when we first moved to Houston, I drove an '84 Honda Accord, a hatchback, blue hatchback, and it was a molded fuse panel with 10 fuses, and 3 of the fuse holders molded down. It was still drivable. So I went to the local dealership, Honda dealership, and they wanted $150 for the panel and $200 for installation, I think is what it was. So I asked at a local garage, I asked the local service station. They said, we don't do that. Go to Ray's Electric in Gulfton. So I went there, I dropped the car off, I picked it up, I thought it'd be $150 for the part. I'd save $100 on the price of putting it in, so it'd be $250. And I asked Chris, the owner, how much it was. He said $26. Mm-hmm. I just looked at him dumbfounded. I said, how can that be? The panel was $150. He said, well, I wired around those 3 individual fuses. So I put in these little fuse holders. So it's only $26. And that's when I knew I found my mechanic. I'd still take the car to the same shop. And he could have charged me $250, but he chose to charge me $26 instead.
Yeah.
So by looking at, you always look at behavior. Behavior carries a bigger weight than what people say. So in that case, behavior spoke volumes of who Chris was and how he did business.
Right. I bet you karma drives a lot of that too.
Oh yeah.
You know, I'm a firm believer in karma. It's kind of hard not to, you know, and if you're going to put that out there, you better believe it's going to come right back, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
It's not always negative. If you put good out there, you're going to get some good back.
Right.
And you're being honest and you're shooting straight with people. That's huge.
Yeah. I mean, it's returning the favor. I mean, definitely on like a one-to-one, like a person to person.
Sure.
But then, yeah, just out there in the universe, they say, you know, you kind of, you get what you put out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in terms of figuring out who people are, I mean, basically I think you give them the opportunity to treat you badly. Sure. If they don't, that's a good sign.
There you go.
And if they do, you find out that's a quick lesson.
That's
okay,
it.
I need to find somebody else to work with.
That's it. That's it. And then no loss there. You just, hey, that's part of experiencing life, and then you move on.
Yeah. So those are some old man observations.
Yeah.
Do you have any other words of wisdom for us?
I think I pretty well tapped myself out for the day, Cody. It's been so much fun. I'm grateful to you and Thomas for inviting me to join you.
Dale, I definitely want to second that. I'm extremely grateful for you taking the time to speak with us. Again, I haven't really taken any college courses, but if I was to ever just randomly take a college class, I'd love to take your class in behavioral finance. That's awesome. And actually, just even speaking just briefly that we did today, it was good to know that some of the principles that I've been following and some of the research I've done on my own isn't too far off.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of which, I had to actually fight to get into his class.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. His class fills up rather quickly.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. And, I remember I just went in there and I just kind of sat in the class for the first day.
Yeah.
And just like, I'm going to take this class. It was full. I wasn't on the actual, roster. And then I just waited for someone to drop out. Because inevitably somebody has to drop out due to schedule conflicts or whatever the case may be. And as soon as that person dropped out, I was like, scroop, right in there. so I definitely appreciate you helping me out. I think you helped me out on that one too, Dale.
I think I might have told you. I think I was mean to Cody. He told me he was trying to get into class. I basically kind of shrugged my shoulders, like, good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah.
Somebody's going to have to drop and you're going to have to work your way up the list.
Yeah.
So I was delighted when things worked out.
Awesome.
That when Cody coming to class spoke about his desire to take the class. I don't control who gets in. The system does.
Yeah.
But I was glad when that worked out.
Awesome.
And I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
I definitely learned a lot. Like I said, my favorite class, was his class, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you meeting with us, via Zoom. I mean, this was actually kind of cool. We've never done the Zoom podcast before,
but it's proved to us that we can do it, and now we might be able to reach out to some people who we thought were unreachable, really, because they didn't live local to the area.
Yeah,
so that's awesome. Thank you again for at least showing us that can be done.
Yeah,
sure thing.
And if you'd be down to do this again, we would love to have you back on.
Sure.
Okay. No, we do it at semester break. During the semester, it's kind of busy, but semester break,
well, I'll actually be, going back to U of H this semester too. So
cool.
From a master's in finance. So wish me luck.
Good luck, Cody.
Maybe I'll take some of your classes. You teach any master's level classes?
Oh, I'm teaching behavioral finance again, but you've pretty much seen that. That's not going to do you much good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very cool. Once again, I appreciate you, Dale. And that's it for the Talk of All Trades, episode 10.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Take care.